everyone. So it looks like a lot of you have been sending in articles about AI, specifically these large language models,
Yeah.
LLMs, and
Yeah.
you really want to like get in there and understand them.
Right.
And honestly, I'm right there with you. I mean, it's just crazy what they can do.
It's wild.
Like AI writing poems, composing music, even coding websites. But like, how do they actually go from zero to Shakespeare or building a whole app? To help us kind of unpack all of that, I've got an AI researcher here with me today.
Thanks for having me. It really is an exciting time to be in this field.
So where do we even start? These LLMs, I mean, they almost sound like magic,
Yeah.
but I know there's some serious science and engineering behind them.
It's definitely not magic, but it's pretty close. Building these LLMs is really a two-step process.
Okay.
You have pre-training, and then you have fine-tuning. Think of it kind of like an apprenticeship.
Okay.
So first you have your general training where you're really just learning all the fundamentals.
Yeah.
That's like pre-training for these LLMs.
So the LLM is kind of learning the basics at this stage, like language, to grammar, how to like string words together.
Exactly. During this pre-training, the model is fed just massive amounts of text data.
Okay.
And it learns to predict the next word in a sequence, like the cat sat on the, that sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
It sounds really simple,
Yeah.
but it's really this simple task that forces the model to develop a really deep understanding of language.
So it's like by trying to figure out what that next word is going to be,
Right.
it's also picking up on all those kind of like underlying rules and patterns of language.
Precisely. So to be able to predict that next word accurately, the model has to understand grammar, syntax, the relationships between words,
Okay.
and even like gather facts about the world. To know that like lion is more likely to be followed by roared than meowed,
Yeah.
it needs to learn what a lion is, how it behaves, and what sounds it makes.
Wow. It's almost like it's building its own internal encyclopedia of knowledge just from reading all those billions of words.
That's a great way to put it. And the scale of this pre-training is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Take GPT-3, for example.
Okay.
It was trained on something like 300 billion words.
300 billion.
To give you some perspective, that's like the equivalent of reading nonstop for over 2,000 years.
2,000 years. That's longer than some civilizations have existed. I mean, no wonder this is such a massive undertaking.
Exactly.
This is not a weekend project.
Definitely not. Just training GPT-3 cost an estimated $4.6 million in just computing resources alone.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the electricity bill on that.
I can't even.
And that's why access to these powerful LLMs is often limited to large tech companies who can really afford the computational costs and the infrastructure.
That makes sense. Okay, but here's what gets me.
Yeah.
You're telling me they feed all this data
Right.
into the model. It learns to predict the next word. And then somehow, out of that, it emerges with the ability to do things they never actually directly programmed it to do.
That's the really fascinating part.
Yeah.
These are what they call emergent capabilities.
Yeah.
Things like translation, question answering,
Mm-hmm.
even writing different creative text formats.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Those weren't explicitly coded in. It's
Yeah.
like the model develops this deeper, more intuitive understanding of language than we could have anticipated.
Okay, so we've got this super brain that's been trained on just mountains of data. It's got all of this knowledge, all these unexpected abilities. Where does fine-tuning come into all of this? Is that like taking this general LLM and turning it into like a specialist?
Exactly. Pre-training creates the foundation, but fine-tuning really shapes that foundation into something more specific
Okay.
and purposeful. So think of it like this. Pre-training gives you like a Swiss Army knife.
Okay.
It's got a tool for everything.
Hmm.
But fine-tuning is honing one specific tool to its sharpest point. And that makes it ideal for a particular job.
I love that analogy. So I'm starting to see how these two stages work together.
Yeah.
Pre-training is building the brain. Fine-tuning is teaching it how to apply that knowledge to a specific field.
You got it.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll dive in next. We'll unpack the details of fine-tuning, look at some real-world examples, and explore what this all means for you and your work.
Okay, so we've got this pre-trained LLM, this like powerful generalist. It's ready to be molded into a specialist.
Right.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty of fine-tuning.
Yeah.
What exactly is happening in this stage?
Fine-tuning is all about taking that vast knowledge base from pre-training and really focusing it on a specific task or domain.
Okay.
So instead of just billions of like random words, we're now working with smaller, more carefully curated data sets that are directly relevant to the task at hand.
So if we wanted to fine-tune an LLM, To be like a customer service chatbot
Right.
for, say, a telecommunications company, what kind of data are we talking about?
You'd want to feed it real customer conversations, tons of them,
Okay.
showing how human agents handled different inquiries, solved technical issues,
Mm.
and even navigated those tricky, I want to speak to a manager situations.
Yeah. So it's like the LLM is learning by example, observing those best practices of those experienced customer service reps. That's smart. But how do we make sure that the model actually understands what a good response looks like?
That's where labeled data comes in.
Okay.
So each conversation in our data set would be labeled with kind of the ideal response or outcome. Think of it like giving the LLM the answer key,
Uh-huh.
so it can then compare its own responses to the ideal ones and then kind of adjust its approach accordingly.
So it's not just learning facts, it's also learning a style,
Right.
like a tone, a specific way of interacting with customers.
Exactly.
It's almost like it's taking a communication masterclass.
It is. That's a great way to put it. And it's this feedback loop that really allows the model to continuously improve and refine its skills.
Mm-hmm.
So it's learning from each interaction, getting better and better at its specialized task.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you have any like real-world examples of how fine-tuning has been used to create effective LLM applications?
Absolutely. We're seeing amazing results across various industries. SK Telecom, for
Yeah.
example. The South Korean company fine-tuned a model specifically for their customer service needs. They really focused on telecom-specific language, technical jargon, and even cultural nuances in Korean conversations.
So they weren't just teaching it like generic customer service skills. They
Right.
were really tailoring it to their specific business and their customer base.
Exactly.
What kind of impact did that have?
The impact was significant.
Yeah.
They saw improved customer satisfaction, faster resolution times, and even better insights into customer needs based on the AI's ability to analyze and summarize those conversations.
That's impressive. It sounds like fine-tuning can really be a game changer when it comes to building AI tools that are genuinely useful and
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah.
Any other examples that come to mind?
There's Harvey, a legal AI tool developed by a startup.
Okay.
They took a pre-trained LLM
Okay.
and fine-tuned it on a massive data set of legal case history, court rulings, and contracts.
So instead of like that general understanding of language,
Right.
this AI now has like specialized knowledge of the legal domain.
Precisely. And this specialized knowledge allowed Harvey to actually perform tasks that would have been impossible with just pre-training. It could analyze legal documents, identify potential risks, and even draft legal arguments.
Wow, all with a level of accuracy that surprised even seasoned lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, so we've seen how fine-tuning can really transform a generalist LLM into a specialist. For our listener out there who might be thinking about using LLMs, what are the key differences they need to keep in mind between pre-training and fine-tuning?
Here's a simple breakdown. Pre-training is about broad knowledge, massive amounts of unlabeled data. And it's very expensive, often the domain of like large tech companies.
Okay. Fine-tuning, on the other hand,
Okay.
is about specific tasks.
Exactly.
Smaller sets of labeled data.
Yeah.
And while it's still an investment, it's not on that same level as pre-training.
Right.
So if our listener needs an LLM to do something specific, to have expertise in a particular field, fine-tuning is the way to go.
Exactly.
But where do they even start?
The first question to ask is, what do you actually need this LLM to do you? If you're just exploring the technology, playing around with creative writing, or need some basic question answering capabilities, an existing pre-trained model like GPT-4 might be all you need.
Okay. But if you need something more tailored, more aligned with your industry,
Yeah.
or a specific business need,
Then fine-tuning becomes essential. You need to think about what are the precise tasks you want the model to perform? What kind of specialized knowledge is needed? And how will you measure its success?
so we're kind of moving into choose your own adventure territory here.
Yeah.
There are so many potential applications for fine-tuning.
Yeah.
Does this always require a team of AI engineers to pull off?
It can be complex, but the exciting thing is that fine-tuning is becoming more and more accessible. We're seeing more user-friendly tools that allow people and organizations to actually customize these models without needing a PhD in AI.
So even smaller businesses or
Right.
individuals could potentially leverage this technology.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most promising aspects of this field. As fine-tuning becomes more democratized, we'll see a wider range of applications and innovations coming from all sorts of unexpected places.
That's a really cool thought, that this incredibly powerful technology won't just be in the hands of a few big players. But before we get too far into the future, let's bring it back to the here and now. What are some practical tips for someone who's thinking about fine-tuning an LLM?
I'd say the most important thing is to really see fine-tuning as an iterative process.
Okay.
You're not going to get it perfect on the first try. Start with a clear goal, a well-defined task you want the model to perform.
Right, so don't try to boil the ocean. Start with a specific problem you want to solve.
Exactly. Then carefully curate your data. The quality of your data is absolutely crucial. It needs to be relevant to the task,
Hmm.
representative of the real-world scenarios you're targeting, and free of any errors or inconsistencies.
Garbage in, garbage out. Yeah.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Try different fine-tuning approaches, different data sets, different ways of measuring success. The more you experiment, the better you'll understand what works best for your specific application.
So it's a journey of discovery, not a one and done kind of thing.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, even though this technology is rapidly advancing, we're still in the early stages. There's so much more to learn and explore.
It's like we've just opened the first page of a really long, really fascinating book.
Precisely. And who knows what incredible stories we'll find as we keep turning the pages.
So we've covered like the what and the how of all this pre-training and fine-tuning, but I'm kind of also curious about what's next. What are your predictions for how this field might evolve in the future?
Well, the exciting thing is that we're already seeing advancements at a breakneck speed. Like pre-trained models are becoming even more capable with each generation. The latest models are really showing remarkable reasoning abilities and can even handle complex tasks that were just considered impossible just a few years ago.
So these LLMs are just going to keep getting smarter, more powerful. I mean, is there even like a limit to how far this can go?
It's tough to say where the ceiling is,
Hmm.
but we're definitely not there yet. And on the fine-tuning side, things are becoming more accessible. We're
Okay.
seeing more user-friendly tools that allow people and organizations to actually customize these models without needing a PhD in AI.
That's a game changer. That really opens up the possibilities for like who can use this technology and what they can achieve with it.
Right. And we're also seeing new techniques emerge that make both pre-training and fine-tuning more efficient and effective. For example, there's a lot of research going into parameter-efficient fine-tuning.
Parameter efficient fine tuning? That sounds pretty technical.
It is, but I can explain. It's basically a way to fine-tune models while updating only a small fraction of their parameters. Think of it like this.
Okay.
Instead of retraining like the entire model, you're just making these like targeted adjustments to specific parts of it.
So less computational heavy lifting,
Exactly.
which means it could be done faster and cheaper.
Exactly. This could really be a game changer for making this technology even more widely available. But beyond just like the technical advancements,
Yeah.
it's important to remember the human element too.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as these AI systems become more powerful and really integrated into our lives, it's crucial that they reflect human values and preferences.
So it's not just about making the models like more capable.
Right.
It's also about making sure that they're used responsibly.
Precisely. We need to think about things like fairness, transparency, and making sure that these systems are aligned with our ethical principles.
This has been a truly insightful deep dive. Any final thoughts for our listener before we wrap things up here? What should they be thinking about as they continue to explore this world of LLMs?
I'd say, firstly, just appreciate the incredible engineering behind these systems. Like the next time you chat with a chatbot or use an AI-powered tool, think about the two-stage process, the pre-training and the fine-tuning. That made it all possible.
Yeah, it really is mind-blowing when you stop and think about it.
And for those who are thinking about using LLMs in their organizations, remember that both pre-training and fine-tuning are often necessary to create truly effective applications.
Okay.
While pre-training really builds that foundation, it's often fine-tuning that turns a general-purpose model into a valuable, specialized tool.
So it's about striking that right balance
Exactly.
between general intelligence and specialized expertise.
Absolutely. And finally, for anyone out there who's feeling inspired, just remember that this field is constantly evolving. As fine-tuning becomes more accessible, there will be even more opportunities to get involved, to experiment, and to really shape the future of this technology.
I love that. It's not just about observing these advancements from the sidelines.
Right?
It's about actively participating in shaping the future of AI.
You got it. And who knows, maybe you, our listener, will be the one to develop that next groundbreaking LLM application.
That's a great note to end on. Huge thanks to you for joining us on this incredible deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listener, if this has sparked an idea, a burning question, I want you to consider this. If you could fine-tune an LLM for any specific task or field, what would it be and why? Let that question be your guide as you continue exploring this world of AI. Until next time, keep diving deep.